As expected, football cards were red hot at the National. The NFL season is about to get started. We've got to get back to my computer and look at the data before it's too late. Let's go. Hey everyone, welcome back to another good old-fashioned data dive. My name is Tyler Nethercott, better known as Teapot, and as you know, I've been on my feet the last month or so for these videos. We've been doing something new. I've done several videos in the shop floor that were very popular. We were at the National last week where I got a chance to walk around finally and explore a little bit. But now it's time for the NFL season to get started. Again, I'm super pumped. Football is my favorite sport to watch and track throughout the season. And we've got to get into the data. So I needed my computer, I had to pull out the trusty old computer here, the web version of Market Movers. And this week, I want you to do me a favor. I'm gonna go through, this is gonna be an old-fashioned price movements, charts. We're gonna look at, I'm gonna give some conjecture, which by the way will be my opinions only, my opinions. Never take what I say, too seriously. I get some right, I get some wrong, just like I'm sure all of you do. But I wanna know what you think. So as I go through these players, we're gonna talk quarterbacks, receivers, and running backs. I want you to let me know down in the comments one player you agree with me the most on and one player you agree the least on. And whoever I pick next week, it's gonna be a random drawing, I'll randomize it. I've got 3 Cards HQ gift cards, 3 $10 Cards HQ gift cards, 30 bucks. I'm gonna send these out, mail them out to whoever wins. You can use them online or in the shop if you happen to be in this area. And of course, while you're at it, if you want to use Market Movers, you can sign up using code DIVE, D-I-V-E. That'll get you 14 days free and then 20% off any plan. So you're going to want to go to marketmoversapp.com and use that code at checkout to get 2 weeks completely free and 20% off. So without further ado, I'm going to flip this open. Let's get into some information. So you guys know I love to start out with championship odds, Super Bowl odds before the season, looking at those Vegas futures. I'm not necessarily a sports bettor, mostly because it's not technically legal in Georgia. If it were, that'd probably be bad for my checkbook, honestly. But I'm gonna look at, kind of who are the favorites, because Vegas tends to be pretty smart with this stuff. And if there's one thing that matters in football, it's winning. Way more than anything else, honestly. Even more than statistical accolades, MVPs, it's all about winning championships. So they've got the 49ers at number 1 favorite, kind of across the board, pretty much tied with the Chiefs. So not surprising to see 2 teams that were in the championship last year that obviously have a track record of recent success as well, with the Chiefs having won back-to-back. Well, I don't need to say anything too much about the Chiefs in general. The Niners were there. They've now lost twice to my Chiefs. Sorry, Niners fans. Then we've got the Ravens and the Lions, who were obviously in the mix in the NFC Championship games last year. You've got the Eagles, who were there 2 years ago. You've got the Texans, who were upstarts. Last year, they were not expected to do anything. C.J. Stroud broke out as a strong, top 8 quarterback in the NFL. You've got the Bengals with Joe Burrow coming back from injury. And then the Bills, obviously, they're always going to be in the mix with Josh Allen in spite of losing a lot of offensive weapons. The Jets, the Packers, and the Cowboys. So keep those teams in mind. You can refer back to this timestamp in the video to look at these if you need them for a reference, but I might pull them back up just to kind of point those out. The other thing I like to look at, championship odds matter once we get into January. Once we get into 2025, the first part of the year, and we get into February heading toward the Super Bowl, those teams and those players are the ones whose prices may start to go up later in the season with that playoff buzz. But in the meantime, what matters is winning and strength of schedule and statistical performance, all of those things sort of culminating into hype. So that's what we look for when we're looking at whose cards are gonna be hot before the season and early in the season. Hype cycle, hype really matters in the buzz around the players. Strength of schedule, you want offensive players playing weak defenses, having a good chance to start out 3-0, 4-0, 5-0 in the season, and you want strong statistical performance related to that. So this is the Sharp Football Analysis, and historically, if you want to go to this website, you can look this up. It's just their analysis, NFL strength of schedule. Here's the URL. You can see this shows which teams have the best schedule in terms of easy schedule, and then the worst schedule. So at number 1, the easiest schedule next year, right here in Atlanta, the Atlanta Falcons, freshly having picked up Kirk Cousins and then mind-bogglingly also drafted Michael Penix. They've got quarterback options apparently, and they've also got offensive weapons. They've got Kyle Pitts, they've got Drake London, and most notably, they've got Bijan Robinson, who they failed to get the ball to sufficiently last year, in my opinion. So they're saying the Falcons, by far and away, have the easiest strength of schedule. Then we move into the Chargers. We got the Bears, we got the Jets, We got the Saints. So this is always going to be those teams that struggled in the year before, tend to get the easier schedule the next season. They're trying to get them out of the doldrums, out of the gutter, and back into winning. We've got the Bengals, the Colts, the Dolphins, Eagles, Panthers, then the Bucs and the Chiefs. And this is where we start to kind of get into the middle of the pack with the Commanders, the Jaguars, the Seahawks, Cardinals, Rams, Niners, Packers, Giants. Then we get my Lions at 21, so kind of on the opposite end of the Chiefs. Chiefs sort of catching a break here with an easy-ish schedule, at least one of the easier schedules in the league. Cowboys, Bills, Raiders, Broncos, Texans, Titans. Sorry, Titans fans, this season looks like it's going to be bad. Vikings, Ravens, Browns, Patriots also not looking like they're going to have a good season. And the Steelers, who may finally break that crazy streak. I forget exactly what it is, but Mike Tomlin, of how many winning seasons in a row. They obviously snuck into the playoffs last year. And Mike Tomlin's been a heck of a coach. But this, Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, they're probably going to go back and forth between those guys throughout the season, maybe even within the same games. And they've got a really tough schedule, at least based on last year and projections this year. So keep this stuff in mind, and I think I will point back to this as we talk through some of these players, and we've got to start out with quarterbacks. So I'm on Price Movements. You guys know Price Movements takes all of our 3.7 million cards in our database, hundreds of thousands of football cards in our database, and aggregates them so that you can see which cards have gone up and down the most, but not just what cards, but also which players. So it's showing you how many different unique cards sold in these time frames, how many sales, total sales volume, and then we like to look at this price change percentage as well as volume change percentage to see who's selling lots of copies, which can mean they're in high demand, or it can mean that people are liquidating. So you've got to sort of read between the lines, or who might be up or down in that regard. So the number one quarterback here, what I did was I kind of broke this down. This isn't all the quarterbacks. I broke this into 3 buckets. These are sort of the top tier fantasy projected quarterbacks. So that's what I did, those tier 1, 2, 3 fantasy quarterbacks, the most notable names. Then I broke them into the younger guys, the rookie and second year quarterbacks. And then finally, like the underdogs, the sleepers, the backups, other ones who might have a chance to pop off. So let's start here with the biggest names. And Kyler Murray up 19%. He's up the most in the last 6 months. It's not the perfect date, but it's close to when the NFL season ended, right? When a lot of these guys' seasons ended, especially Kyler, who wasn't in the playoffs. He's up 19%, leading all quarterbacks in this category over the last 6 months. I'm not personally high on Kyler. We're going to get into some of his cards on a chart a little bit later. I know Jeff was looking at, and he did pick up some Kyler Murray cards at the National. He thinks there's room for optimism around him. He thought the same thing about his backup, Desmond Ridder, so maybe he's hedging and figures if Kyler crashes, Ridder comes in. Maybe that's a bit of a hedge on his part with those card prices, but Kyler hasn't shown me enough. I think he had potential. I liked him a few years ago. He was running around, scampering all over the field. He could make the throws, but if his head is in the game, I don't know. That's the question I've got. He's got weapons, including now Marvin Harrison Jr., who they picked up in the draft. That was a very big ad, and I think that's why a lot of people are optimistic. But if we go back and look at the Cardinals, let's figure out where the Cardinals were. 16th in terms of strength of schedule, so it looks like it could be somewhat painful for them. I don't see them competing in that division at all. I mean, obviously you've got the 49ers, you've got the Rams, you've got the Seahawks. I think they're going to finish last in the division. I don't think that bodes well for Kyler's card prices this year. Jordan Love, he got the big contract. Which Jordan Love is the real Jordan Love? Will the real Jordan Love please stand up? He's up 18.1% in the last 6 months. And frankly, Jordan Love, I don't know. He looked really good at the end of the year. He looked good in the first 1 to 2 games last year. He looked downright awful in the middle of the season. We've seen this happen in the past. We've seen guys have big paydays. We saw Daniel Jones last year. He got the big contract, then he stunk, then he was injured. Who knows? He's not looking good. Daniel Jones isn't looking good in preseason. So Jordan Love, personally, I'm a sell on him right now. Jared Goff has all the potential in the world to keep going up in price if the Detroit Lions do what people think the Detroit Lions are going to do this year. As a jaded, pain-stricken Lions fan my whole life, I'm having a hard time getting too excited. I don't want to put the cart before the horse. Last year was a Cinderella season. It was sort of miraculous as a Lions fan. They were this close before choking away a Super Bowl appearance. I love Jared Goff. The people of Detroit love Jared Goff. If they come out this year, they use all the weapons that they have on the offensive side. They've got an incredible offensive line. I'm optimistic about the Lions, but I'm not deluded. Goff has to win, the Lions have to win, and I think his prices actually do stand to go up this season as we head toward the playoffs. But if the Lions come out and do what the Lions do, and they're a 500 or worse team, please know, then Jared Goff could come crashing down. It could have been a major hype spike and come down. Tua, again, here's another guy with a lot of weapons. They established an incredible run game last year with Mostert and A-Chain and a bunch of other, some of the other guys. He's obviously got receiver weapons with Waddle and Hill and others. So I like Tua this season. We go back and look at the Dolphins' strength of schedule. They're up here at 8, so a relatively easy schedule. Kind of a mixed bag. I don't really know what to make of him this year. Mahomes is Mahomes. So if you're a guy or gal who wants to put some money into Mahomes now and you're okay holding him long term if he doesn't go up this season, that could work out really well for you. I don't think you can go wrong, honestly, buying Mahomes if you're willing to play the long game. If Mahomes goes on and wins a third consecutive Super Bowl, which they're in that, Vegas frontrunner space, and his card prices don't go up significantly, I'm going to question the sanity of this entire hobby, honestly, at that point, because what he's doing is actually unprecedented. It's better than what Brady did early in his career, at least slightly in terms of championships, and statistically even more significantly, MVPs, Super Bowl MVPs. There's nothing the guy hasn't done right now so far. So he's definitely one of the safer investments, I feel. Dak, I'm going to throw him into that category. The Cowboys just keep disappointing. I'm not going to believe in them until they change my mind, and I'm not a Cowboys fan, so I wouldn't be buying Dak right now. Jalen Hurts has new offensive weapons. I don't know what happened last year. The wheels fell off of that team. They started out so hot. I was super high on Hurts last year, and then they just lost. And now they lost Jason Kelce. They lost some other offensive linemen, I believe. They did go out and pick up Saquon Barkley. So we'll see what happens with the Eagles. I got to think they're at least going to be in the mix for the playoffs, but I don't think they're one of the favorites in the NFC personally. We'll see. Herbert, 1.3%, he's up. I like Justin Herbert. I think people have forgotten about Justin Herbert, and I think Jim Harbaugh going to the Chargers is going to turn that team around. How long will that take? I don't know, but they, as we saw, very easy schedule this year. That could work in his favor. He doesn't have a ton of offensive weapons around him. Quentin Johnston looks absolutely terrible. He keeps dropping wide open passes in preseason. He's got to get that figured out. He needs weapons around him. But I like Herbert. We'll see what happens with him this year. You guys know what I said about Trevor Lawrence, and that's no knock on Trevor Lawrence. Seems like a really nice guy. I'm actually rooting for Trevor Lawrence. For the hobby's sake, for Jags fans' sake, I don't dislike Trevor Lawrence. I just was concerned after last year, and unless he can prove me wrong and prove the doubters wrong at this point and completely turn things around this year, I think Trevor Lawrence card prices will continue to see a dip. They're down 50% in some cases over the last full year. So Trevor Lawrence, be careful. We got Joe Burrow coming back. There's no doubting Joe Burrow's talent, and including the weapons around him. He's got weapons, he's got talent, but he can't stay on the field. So I get really nervous about players like that, and I don't touch them. I do not touch players who are injury prone like Joe Burrow is. Lamar, MVP, playoff runs, gets knocked out. And I said it before, it's all about winning in the NFL. Lamar's got to win. At this point, he's just got to win. He's done everything else he needs to do. He's broken all kinds of records. He's sort of a one-of-a-kind quarterback in the NFL in many regards. He's got to make a Super Bowl run and probably win a Super Bowl to maintain or hold value. It would be really interesting if Lamar comes out and somehow wins his third MVP this season, has another really strong year, while Mahomes and others have maybe a little bit of a down year. Lamar could win a third MVP. How would that help his prices in the immediate horizon? Maybe not too much. Long term, in terms of his trajectory and going to Canton, it probably would help. But he's got to win now. It's sort of put up or shut up with Lamar, or his cards could keep coming down. Josh Allen's down 3%. The Bills, of all the teams in the NFL this year, are the one I don't know what to think about. They have top-tier talent. I love Josh Allen. He's a gunslinger. He makes plays. Yes, he turns the ball over a lot, but he makes things happen. And I'm just generally a big fan of Josh Allen. and the Bills. Obviously, he's been snake bitten by running into the Chiefs time and time again and losing to them in the playoffs. They've got to get over the hump, similar to the Ravens, or I think his card prices could keep coming down as well. Anthony Richardson, we just haven't seen enough. To me, he's this year's Jordan Love. Everybody was high on Jordan Love last year. He came out, he wasn't particularly good. All of a sudden, he has a run late. I don't expect much from the Colts this year in terms of performance. He's got Joe Flacco backing him up, who looked like a legend last year, had the best stretch of his career when he came in for the Browns and pushed them to the playoffs. So we'll see what happens with the Colts. Brock Purdy, I think people just keep doubting Brock Purdy at this point. They keep doubting him. They make all these false claims that he doesn't know how to throw the ball down the field, when in fact he actually has the best, the number one deep ball advanced analytics in the NFL in terms of air yards, net air yards, completion percentage down the field. Yes, Brock Purdy is number one. No, he does not only throw checkdowns to those players on his team. Go look at the stats. I've covered it in the past. He's a heck of a quarterback. He's cerebral. He's very accurate, but people don't love him in terms of the hype cycle like they do Joe Burrow. So I'm afraid if he doesn't play well, if he has one season where he just doesn't play well, where the Niners aren't winning, it's going to mean really bad things for his cards. And then CJ Stroud, he's down 28% over the last 6 months, which is really interesting. He just had so much hype, like so many rookies who break out. He had so much hype. I think his card prices are still pretty high right now and probably right about where they should be. I think they've settled in. So if you think the Texans are going to come out with all these offensive weapons and they're going to have a really good year again, Stroud could be a good buy. But we haven't seen a ton, and when it comes to NFL quarterbacks, I like a little bit more of a proven track record before I put any significant money in, and good luck getting into any meaningful, bigger Stroud cards without putting significant money in. All right, let's go a little bit faster on these guys. These are the youngsters. Aiden O'Connell, no, I'm not a buy. 28%, he's up over the last 6 months. His prices aren't super expensive. I do think the Raiders will be better this year than people believe they will be. I think in the ESPN Power Rankings, they had the Raiders dead last. Are you kidding me? I think they're actually going to compete. I think they're a 500 caliber team. Their 1 weak spot or question mark is Aiden O'Connell. We'll see what happens there. J.J. McCarthy's in a quarterback battle with Sam Darnold in Minnesota. I don't know what to make of him. I don't feel like we ever saw him throw the ball enough in college since the Wolverines always ran the football really well. Ridder, if Ridder comes in and Murray gets hurt or he doesn't play well, I think he'll see a short-term spike. But I don't think much of Desmond Ridder. Sorry, Jeff. Will Levis. Sorry, Will. You're 4 hours away from me. I'm sure Doug from our team would like to see you perform well. Kentucky fan. He's up 7%. I think the Titans possibly are the worst team in the NFL this year. They're going to have a really rough season, and they've got a tough schedule on top of it. Bo Nix was overthrowing people and throwing it to the defense in summer camp like crazy, and so he's been throwing it that way, throwing poorly. Bryce Young, tough team situation. Panthers, what a dumpster fire. I don't know, does he have enough weapons? We'll see. I have a fear for Bryce Young that he could end up like so many of these other top quarterbacks from the last few years with a short runway. If he doesn't play well this season, he might have one more half of a year to get it figured out, whether it's his fault or not, before he gets kicked along to another team, and we've seen plenty of players like that recently. Caleb Williams, keep in mind these cards for these rookies are pretty much their Bowman Chrome University cards. Jaden Daniels has like some Leaf and Sage cards, and Topps Now, he doesn't have anything from Bowman, so I don't consider those significant cards to track prices on or put too much stock in. The Bowman Chrome could hold some value, maybe more long-term. Williams is down 15%, Penix down 20%. Again, baffling pick in my opinion, and not good for Michael Penix Jr. cards, I don't think, because Cousins is the guy, and Drake May, I hope they can protect him. I hope he can work out for Patriots fans' sake, but tough schedule this upcoming season. He's going to have his work cut out for him. I'm honestly not too high on any of these guys at all. Okay. Speaking of Sam Darnold, he's up 37%, figures to be the opening day starter for the Vikings. He's got weapons. He's got Justin Jefferson. He's got Jordan Addison as long as he stays out of jail. And Darnold, he's shown some things sort of over the last few years, bouncing around the league, but I'm not too high on him. I wouldn't do anything with his cards. Geno Smith, settled in, up 29%, kind of baffling, but that's not on a ton of sales or a ton of cards. He just doesn't have a lot that people are interested in. Gardner Minshew, he's had a nice journeyman career. No, I'm not buying his cards. Kirk Cousins with that easy schedule, plus a Hall of Fame caliber career so far, in my opinion, in terms of statistics. Could this be the year that Cousins takes another team like the Falcons, puts them on his back, gets them into the playoffs? He has a chance to become a legend here like Goff has become in Detroit potentially. It'd be nice to see him come back from that big injury and have a nice year. And I wouldn't mind going to check out a few of their games this upcoming season. Derek Carr looked rough last year, didn't look like he could compete. I don't think the Saints are going to be very good, hence the easy strength of schedule for the Falcons. Mayfield did look good. The Bucs surprised a lot of teams. They made it, to that game against the Lions and lost in the playoffs. Sam Howell, no, don't touch his cards. Deshaun Watson doesn't look like he knows how to throw a football anymore. Aaron Rodgers, back from the Achilles injury. He's arguing with Garrett Wilson in summer camp. Who knows what's going to happen in that situation. Flacco's backing up in Indy now. He moved from Cleveland over to Indy, backing up Anthony Richardson. Zach Wilson out there in Denver competing for snaps. We'll see what happens. Jameis Winston's down 5%. He's in, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe he's in Cleveland now, backing up Deshaun Watson, if I'm not mistaken. I could see Jameis Winston actually getting some snaps this year, and I'll tell you, the last few times that he's been on squads where he was the backup and then he came in, he ends up throwing for like 300 plus yards and a few touchdowns and like 15 interceptions, but people don't seem to care. So he's a guy who could see a spike. If you're holding some of his lower dollar cards, they might be worth speculating on this season. I'm not sure I would go out and buy a lot of them. We got Jacoby Brissett. Daniel Jones, sell. Sorry, just sell. Sell Daniel Jones. Mac Jones, no, just sell. Stafford, who knows which Stafford we'll get this year. He always favors one receiver. Last year it was Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp in the past, Megatron. So I like his receiving options, his primary receiving options when it comes to cards. Russell Wilson competing for snaps with Justin Fields, and Kenny Pickett. No, keep Kenny Pickett off of here. So that's kind of the price movements for all the different quarterbacks. Let's jump over and look at running backs quickly. Najee Harris up 33%. The yards per carry are concerning. I do think they're going to continue to ride him like a workhorse, like Steelers teams historically do with running backs, like Mike Tomlin likes to do. But they've got other running backs, so I wouldn't be touching Najee right now. I do think he seems like a fun guy, no offense, but I'm not too optimistic on the Steelers this year. Breece Hall is a heck of a running back. Again, injury concerns. The Jets, they're going to have, what did we say about the Jets and their strength of schedule? I think it was, one of the easier ones, fourth easiest. So maybe the Jets are going to be, in the mix this year, but that's going to depend on Aaron Rodgers a lot and their defense. Travis Etienne, solid. I think he'll continue to have another solid season. Saquon, when healthy, is one of the best running backs in the league. I actually think I'm pretty optimistic about him with the Eagles this year. I think he's going to have a big year. James Conner, sorry, just nobody really cares. Jonathan Taylor's a beast. I think people have forgotten about Jonathan Taylor, and I actually think Jonathan Taylor is going to have another really solid season. As long as he's healthy, I like Jonathan Taylor. I might actually look to pick up a few of his cards if I can find them for a good deal. Look for things ending on auction. Nick Chubb, somehow after looking like he was going to have a career-ending injury for the second time in his career, you remember college too, they're saying he might be back early in the season. This guy is a beast. He's awesome. I love watching Nick Chubb. He's one of my favorite running backs to watch. He's, I think he has the most rushing yards going into last year of any running back since he was a rookie. He's just a heck of a running back, and he's gritty and he wants to play. He could be sneaky considering his prices are flat and they're really down over the last year. Kenneth Walker, go green, go white, go Michigan State. I don't know what to expect from him this year with the Seahawks. And then we've got Kamara, Montgomery, Rachaad White. Bijan, I think, is a buy right now. Honestly, I really think he's a buy. I think he's going to have a good season. Jahmyr Gibbs went up a lot earlier, so now down 6%. Some of his cards are up significantly. Others are down. It depends on the timing of releases last year and how many were graded. But down 6%. I'm hugely high on Gibbs this upcoming season, but I think his card prices are actually pretty high for a running back, so I'm kind of more of a hold on him. Derrick Henry, no idea what to expect from him with the Ravens. I'm pretty optimistic. I picked up one of his cards at Cards HQ here a few weeks ago, as you saw in that video. I think he could be a good buy, honestly, and I think he's got a Hall of Fame caliber career. So Henry, if he's down, I don't know, maybe he's a buy. Maybe you wait into the season, see how he's doing, and a lot of these guys' card prices will continue to come down. Joe Mixon, I don't know. It seems like a big name for the Texans to add to their offense, but will he actually be the Joe Mixon that he's been so far in his career? Not sure. Christian McCaffrey is a nightmare for anybody to deal with. I think he's going to have another really big season and stay healthy, honestly. Aaron Jones went to Minnesota. Josh Jacobs went to the Packers, so there's some key names moving around there. No, I'm not a buy on Aaron Jones. Pacheco, I'm not a buy. I like him as a fan, but I'm not a buy on him because Mahomes is the guy there. Kyren Williams, I never know what to expect with these running backs with the Rams. One year they come out, they're incredible. The next year they don't even play, or they bench them, or they send them to another team out of the blue. So, Notre Dame, let's go, but I'm not too sold on his card prices. And then A-Chain, just too many options in Miami. You couldn't even predict what they were doing last year. One game he'd have 4 touchdowns. The next week he carries it like 6 times. Doesn't make any sense running the offense like Bill Belichick does with running backs down there. So that's kind of the shakeup on running backs. And then finally, wide receivers, we got Drake London. I remember last year there was this big billboard in Atlanta that was like, we're ready. It was Drake London. And then the first game of the season, he was like 0 receptions on 1 target for no yards. I think it'll be a different story this year with Kirk Cousins. I think Cousins will get him the ball. I'm much higher on Kyle Pitts this year than I am Drake London. Cousins loves his tight ends, but he's got to throw the ball to somebody, and Drake London is the number 1 receiving option for the Falcons. So I think he's potentially have a 1,000-yard season. Jalen Waddle, Jamar Chase, Chris Olave, a lot of receivers up over the last 9 months here, or over the last 6 months. So it's interesting to see. I don't know. Receivers have gotten a lot of traction. It's not just about the quarterbacks anymore necessarily. People are high on receivers. You got Chris Olave, definitely not high on him personally. Devontae Smith, I just think there's too many options with Philadelphia. He's a good receiver. Garrett Wilson figures to have a beastly season. He's one of the most talented receivers in the NFL, but the early arguing, maybe they're just working out the kinks, he and Rodgers. I think when it comes time to play, they're going to be on the same page. Devontae Adams, there's a guy I know Rodgers would like to have back. He's trapped still with the Raiders and unhappy there. You got DK, George Pickens, Amon-Ra St. Brown, who I think is going to have another 1,500-yard season. He's going to be a beast. CeeDee Lamb's going to have another big season for sure. Jefferson, as long as they can get him the ball, should have a big season. He got the big contract, but who knows? Who knows how well Darnold or McCarthy can get him the ball? I think the Texans have too many offensive weapons now, too many wide receivers to spread the ball around to, so I wouldn't put any stock too much into any of their cards. We got Amari Cooper, DJ Moore, Tyreek Hill. People don't always love him off the field. Kind of questionable behavior, honestly. Not a lot to be excited about for me personally there in terms of morality and behavior, but he's unstoppable on the field. Michael Pittman Jr., A.J. Brown down 3%, and then DeAndre Hopkins down 5%. So we'll kind of round it out there. Okay, so there's just one more price movement chart I want to look at, and these are some of the sleeper wide receivers. These are the ones that have the potential typically to go up the most. A few years ago, this was Cooper Kupp. Last year, this was Puka Nacua. This was others like that. Deebo Samuel a couple years ago was in this category. It's guys that people kind of sleep on, and then they have a big year. And so here's some of the candidates, I think. Quentin Johnson, he's showing up 33% over the last 180 days because he came way down on his rookie cards. He had a terrible rookie season. Somebody's got to catch the ball for Herbert, who likes to throw the football. I'm not necessarily high on him, but I'd put him into this category. One guy I am high on is Jameson Williams. Now, that's with a caveat. The Lions have a ton of weapons. They've got Laporta. They've got St. Brown. They've got running backs. They like to run the ball with 2 different guys. But they've had one of the top, if not the top, offenses in the NFL the last 2 years, and Jameson Williams is showing a lot of promise. He did late last year. He's got speed for days. He's pretty much unstoppable on go routes. I think he's going to have a big year, and if he does, his card prices could go up. Hollywood Brown now over with the Chiefs. We know the Chiefs have speed now again with Xavier Worthy and Brown, as well as obviously they've got Kelsey. So they're going to be running those guys all over the field. I like Hollywood Brown to have a big season. Jackson Smith-Njigba, he's still lost there with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. They've got, offensive weapons in Seattle, but he's kind of a guy that people I think have forgotten about after sort of an okay season last year. Rome Odunze is obviously with the Bears. They have a lot of weapons as well. but people aren't really looking at his card prices necessarily or putting him too high on draft boards for fantasy. So I'll be interested actually just to see where his card prices come out. Then you've got Khalil Shakir for the Bills. Again, somebody's got to catch the ball for Josh Allen. Maybe it'll be him. Romeo Doubs. He showed some signs last year for the Packers. And then Jordan Addison, who, again, trouble off the field, speeding, different issues. He's a viable weapon. He's very talented. He's come down 14%. So these are kind of the guys. Let me know as part of your little comment down below for these gift cards if there's somebody flying under the radar as a wide receiver who you think could be sneaky. So let's go look at quarterbacks, get into some detail here, and then we'll put a bow on this. So I'm starting out with 3 guys that I'm personally not high on for this season. Jordan Love, Kyler Murray, Trevor Lawrence. I already told you about Trevor Lawrence. I did an entire video on that. I think when you look at their schedule, I don't expect they're going to have a very good season, a winning season. I know last year to me, their win-loss record was kind of a miracle, honestly, because of how poorly Trevor Lawrence played. So these 3 guys, I'm stacking up their Optic Holo PSA 10s, and the pop count's different. It's tough to find pop counts that match up year over year because football products vary from year to year, but you got Lawrence at pop 239, and he's at $300 most recently on his PSA 10 Optic Holo. Jordan Love, pop 1623, so definitely not apples to apples. He's at $256. When you compare the Prism Silver PSA 10s for these guys, which are closer in pop count, T-Law is much higher than Jordan Love, which is another reason why I think he potentially could come down another 50% this year if he doesn't have a good season. And then Kyler Murray, $175. He's been on the opposite track. He's up 32%, Love's up 58%. I'm looking at the last year, so the last 365 days, where you got Trevor Lawrence down 50%. So these guys have been sort of moving in opposite directions. Personally, I'm not high on any of them. We'll look 3 months from now and take a look and see where their prices have gone from today. And I have a sneaking suspicion that all 3 of them might be down. Let's look at some quarterbacks where I'm just not sure. It would depend. It's going to depend on a lot, namely winning and their performance, which you can say, well, duh, Teapot, that makes a lot of sense, but let's take a look at those. So Joe Burrow's PSA 10 pop 1623. He's at $465. CJ Stroud pop 245. He's at $465. Those 2 guys are being talked about in the same conversation now. So I see Stroud sort of rising, and with maybe a little bit more favorable situation in terms of health. You've got Joe Burrow at $465, much bigger pop count, 8 times the pop count, roughly 7 times what Stroud's is at the same price. And you've had Burrow coming down, you've had Stroud rising. It'll be really interesting just to look at those 2 cards 3 months from now and see who comes out ahead. Then we've got Brock Purdy. I talked about him a little bit. He's up 20% in the last year. Obviously, they made the Super Bowl run. If they make another Super Bowl run, I think the legend of Purdy will grow. If they don't, I think it will be a big decline for Brock Purdy prices. A lot of people saying, I told you so's. Jalen Hurts, he's down 35% from this time last year. People were high on him last year. The Eagles, like I said, they started out hot. He's down to $229. Anthony Richardson's up 2%. He's at $200. And Dak Prescott's down 20% at $140. And I'm telling you, I think Dak has sort of worn out his welcome. He was a 2016 rookie. He's been in the league for, this will be his 9th season. And he's put up good stats. He's had a good career. The Cowboys just have to win, or people are just going to stop caring about Dak's cards altogether. And then lastly, let's look at the guys that I am high on for different reasons, at least higher than some of the others. Mahomes, he's up 21% in the last year on his PSA 10 Optic Holo. This is pop 748. It's by far the most expensive card that we've looked at, $2,900, and rightfully so. I think this is a card that has a low enough pop count, it's iconic, that it has staying power long term. Mahomes' legacy is already secured. I think he's going to keep it going. There's no reason to believe he won't. He's not getting any worse. I think Mahomes is kind of a safe-ish investment if you've got the money to buy into some of his cards. Justin Herbert down 30% at $305. So I'm going to go back and actually compare him to $300 for Trevor Lawrence, $256 for Jordan Love, 465 for Stroud, 465 for Joe Burrow. And I personally believe that Justin Herbert is just as good of a quarterback or better than some or all of those guys. I think he's right in that caliber. Statistically, he's put up the best numbers of any of the guys we just mentioned since he's been in the league. He's a really good quarterback, and I think he's finally got a really good coach with a proven track record. I think Chargers fans should be rejoicing, and they're going to be in the mix, competing probably in that division, I believe, with the Chiefs for many years to come. Maybe not this year, but going forward, they got to keep Herbert locked up there like they did Rivers and then build around him and turn the organization around into a winning organization. Josh Allen, $800, but it's pop 258. So pop 2461, pop 258 on the Josh Allen. That's down 11%. Low pop card, I think it's probably right where it should be. He's an icon with Buffalo. Their fans are going to hold his card prices up long term, if anything. Maybe those could come down. He's at least got to have like a top 5, top 6 performance this year statistically again, like he did last year, and I think he'll be fine. I don't know. Who's he going to throw the ball to? If anybody can make plays happen and get it to no-name receivers, I think it's Josh Allen, so I'm pretty optimistic about him. Now we got to look at my guy, Jared Goff. $120. The disrespect is real on the PSA 10. Pop 140. Incredibly low pop count. You know, I got to go pick one of these up. I got to go pick up a Jared Goff. The thing is, I want some like blue color match Lions stuff more than I want rookie Rams stuff. But look at where this card was historically. Last year it was up to $215 in September, and then it just came down. In spite of everything that he did, this card just came down, and now it's peaked up at $120. Recently it was $110. Jared Goff, I think Jared Goff's a buy. I know I'm biased, but I think Jared Goff's a buy. And then Lamar, he's at $610. He's actually up 22%. Still below Josh Allen. These two guys should probably be really close in price. They should probably be really close. $200 separating them maybe doesn't make a lot of sense, but again, similar pop counts. Pop 234, same rookie season, same set. I think Lamar's prices should go up a little bit more, and we can look at this one over a more long-term trajectory. If you remember, this is the card that I unfortunately lost the most money on of any card back when I bought it at $2,100 back in 2020. I ended up selling it for around $800 a couple of years later. He's bounced back a little bit. Lamar, he's going to be in the mix. He's a heck of a quarterback. He's athletic. So that's my thoughts overall on the football card market going into this season. We've got about a month. I will say typically this is the time to sell. Mostly what happens with football cards once the season kicks off is that 95+% of them just start going down, 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 down throughout the season. No matter what anybody does, the top tier guys, especially the ones who come out of nowhere, who surprise people, tend to go up. If Jared Goff comes out and has 12 touchdowns in the first 4 weeks or something, maybe he's going to be hot. Again, you got to look at the context of where do they stand today in terms of relativity to other players, other cards. There's going to be buzz immediately once the NFL season kicks off. People are going to look at NBA cards and NHL cards and playoff cards for baseball. So there's a lot of things that work against them. So keep that in mind. Maybe now's the time just to sell everything and then watch prices during the season for the playoff run. But I, again, want to know what you think. And there's $30 on the line, which you can use at cardshq.com. So leave me a comment. Let me know who you agree with the most, who you disagree with the most. Go to marketmoversapp.com and use code DIVE to get 2 weeks and 20% off. And until next time, happy investing, keep on collecting, and make sure to have fun.